All right, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everybody. Today is Thursday, February 24th, 2022. And look, I'm going to be honest with you folks. There is nothing else to cover except for Ukraine, and we're going to cover multiple angles of that. I don't plan to waste anybody's time. In addition to that of China flying its fighter jets into, I think, anywhere from 6 to 10 fighter jets into Taiwanese defense air zone space, if I'm not mistaken. Now, I do not want to disseminate disinformation or misinformation. I would like to be very clear. I was assembling my notes for KRAKEN today. Of course, everyone around the world and their mother is just a figure of speech, is speaking about Ukraine, of course, and so is not just the mainstream media, but even sources unofficially, you name it. Now, there's a lot of propaganda going on, and I'm not going to say from which side that comes from because, again, YouTube will nick me. But to be fair, again, it's probably, the coin is double-sided, if you guys see what I'm saying here. Now, what I mean when I say do not want to spread misinformation or disinformation is this right over here on the right-hand side for those watching on YouTube, okay? This could be photoshopped, I'm not sure. And the reason I'm saying this is because aside from Putin seemingly, again, going through what some say wanting to start chaos, world war, you name it, or, again, having no choice, truly being provoked by the CIA, NSA, we got to look deeper than that. Again, of course, when the narrative of the beep boop falls, notice how all of a sudden there's another distraction. But even in a certain regard, putting that to the side for a second, you guys remember the Let's Get Banned that I did? And I'm not trying to say that I was right and others were wrong. It's not about that. Remember when we looked at that Let's Get Banned from Sunday, put out publicly, and for members, the rooms are separate video games one. It was on Patreon for about almost a month at this point. It seems like when we talked about that, remember when we discussed Poland and Belarus being a cover based on alleged sources on the dark web saying that it's a cover of UFO or extraterrestrial bases in craft, you name it? Well, Putin seems to be specifically going for Chernobyl, at least at the moment. What I'd like to point out specifically is, if I'm not mistaken, if we head to the bottom here of this Telegram account called IntelSlava that seemed to be reporting I guess you could say, on the ground, so to speak, compared to that of the mainstream media. We see here attitude towards Ukrainian prisoners, like all these different things, all different footage to back it up. And we also have to consider footage being photoshopped as well and things like this. But this particular channel, IntelSlava, seems to be getting footage directly from on the ground. Now, with that being said, at the same time, there's a lot to cover. It's literally coming out minute by minute. But why is Putin specifically going after Chernobyl specifically? Again, we know Chernobyl, for example, was a please forgive me, was at one point nuclear power plant. We know that UFOs were constantly seen coming and going there. I'm not trying to implement the ET angle here, but if we're going to talk big picture, we also have to ask ourselves, will the extraterrestrials, regardless of their intention or faction or species, allow any nukes to be dropped? That's number one. Sorry for seeming scatterbrained, folks. It's just there's so much going on. I want to cover the most prominent points of this as possible. Actually, we can even argue from an esoteric standpoint, me even addressing or giving mental focus to this situation is not good, right? But I know you folks want to hear my perspective and my opinion. Now, our great friend of the show, Johnny Vedmore, said, don't take sides in this war rhetoric. Both sides are working together for exactly the same agenda, and they use war to divide us by tapping into a very simplistic part of our brain. I would dare to say the emotional side, right? The right place to stand is with the victims on both sides of the completely manufactured conflict. I couldn't agree more with you, Johnny, sir. And I'm very grateful and thankful that you are a contributor to our show, particularly on the Patreon side of things. He's absolutely correct. Now, with that being said, is Putin using all of this as a cover for something at Chernobyl? Why specifically is Chernobyl occurring? Why, again, when we take a look at, for example, Biden going after these specific power plants and all of that, I mean, we got to think, right? I wish I could have this conversation in real time with you guys. I was considering doing a live KRAKEN, but at the same time as well, we have a live stream tonight as well. So now, if we take a look on the right-hand side here, folks, for those on YouTube, this is the craft or the disc that was seen crashed. Now, again, some people are saying it's photoshopped. Let's weigh our options here, all right? First and foremost, it's possible that this is photoshopped and edited. Yes. Number two is that it may appear to look photoshopped or edited if it's still emitting some type of frequency off of it, which would then mess with the space-time metric relative to the optical lens, right? Now, some are saying that this here is graffiti, or and others are saying it is ET insignia symbolism. Again, I'm not trying to disseminate misinformation or disinformation, but very interesting, right? We see here clearly seems to be, at least in my humble perspective, human-made or human adjusted, if you want to call it. Again, take this as you will, as you see fit. It's possible that this did not happen, but we have to take this at face value. At the same time, this occurred in the Barnaul location, and the time taken was unknown. Again, this is a little bit peculiar and interesting on my end to look at, and I'm not trying to spend too much time on it, but aside from that, I mean, there's not much else I can say other than delving into this sort of, I guess, without delving into the rhetoric, as our friend Johnny said, right? I'm really not trying to make this a purely Ukraine episode, but there's really nothing else to discuss and things like that. So if we look at a few different angles here, right? Is he going for Chernobyl? Is he going for taking Ukraine because allegedly, and I say this for the sake of YouTube, allegedly the NSA was placing missiles secretly in top secret programs and operations along the border of Ukraine, so he didn't have much of a choice. There's all these different speculations, right? Like, I mean, again, the outskirts of Kharkiv we see over here, right? For example, we take a look at all of this, and when we see that, it's like, I mean, take a look at that, right? Just constant flashes, right? Fighting in Gostomel. I mean, there's so much happening here. And of course, we have China as well entering, like I said earlier, the Taiwanese airspace. Now, the Pentagon plans to deploy an additional 7,000 U.S. troops to Germany in the coming days. And Biden was asked by a reporter just minutes ago, as of the time I'm recording this, are you urging China to help isolate Russia? And Biden said, he goes, I'm not prepared to comment on that in the moment. So clearly, it's sanctions are flying, quote-unquote punishments are flying from countries all over the world against Russia. Germany says it is not going to remove Russia from the SWIFT currency, or the SWIFT platform, excuse me, that is the payment platform for the pipeline and all that stuff. Now, the one thing I found quite peculiar is that when you look at Western journalists saying things like, oh, well, we can break the back of Russia by cutting off the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. If I'm not mistaken, wasn't it Germany that asked Russia to build it? There's plenty of buyers if Germany doesn't want to. Again, I know I covered this a couple days ago, and at the time my speculation was, well, Russia might want to keep Germany as a client because they pay on time and they pay big and all that. Well, again, it seems like the Russians really did weigh their options, and this is not some impromptu battle. This certainly seems like it was pre-planned. I also wanted to report that a boat was seized off of the Norwegian coast, I believe. A yacht was, that belonged to a former KGB official who was also close friends with Putin. And this yacht seemed to allegedly be not just a yacht, but a cover to cut fiber optic cables underwater. So again, let's not kid ourselves too. The UK, the America, they have all this stuff ready in their arsenal too. Don't kid yourselves, and probably even deployed for that matter. But again, we see here U.S. to sanction Russian banks, businesses, oligarchs, Russia's access and use of the world major currencies, trades of certain goods, such as high-tech imports, Biden announces. So, there's disrupting internet connectivity across Russia. Allegedly, that is an option that the U.S. Cyber Department is considering, shutting off electric power, tampering with railroad switches to hamper Russia's ability to resupply its forces, things like this. We see here the UBS cut Russia's bond value to zero, triggering margin calls for the bank's wealth management clients. The UK sanctioning. I mean, there's a lot going on. Now we have anti-war protests in Putin's hometown of St. Petersburg. We also have to be vigilant of the fact that I'm sure some of them are legitimate protesters, while others are, again, could be that of on the payroll of other intelligence agencies. Again, not to defend Putin, we got to consider all of this, right? We have things like the Kremlin.ru, that's the suffix for the Russian. Instead of .com, they have .ru. The website of the president of Russia went dark. The Kremlin website was then back on again, and then it went offline again. So again, it's constantly going as we're as things are happening. So I mean, I had a bunch of notes that I had written down, but I threw it all out because they were outdated within 10 minutes literally. So again, folks, I don't mean to sort of make this overly vague. I'm very, very curious why Putin is specifically going for Chernobyl. Obviously, you know, it being a former nuclear plant, but I wonder if there are secrets there that, again, may seem to be a little bit more indicative of him wanting to go for the whole country, and maybe, again, showing a form of desperation to go for Chernobyl. And if I'm missing context, please do fill me in. But again, folks, I don't, here's the thing, I don't mean to take up too much of your time. I don't know how much else could be reported other than just saying, let's keep our eye on the ball. We do have a public live stream tonight, so we can certainly chat about that as well. But at this point in time, I truly don't know what else could be said in this regard. So with that being said, folks, I know you're used to much longer Krakens, but I mean, all I'm going to be doing is just reporting stuff that you guys will probably be seeing and hearing, and I don't want to be adding to the fear-mongering of it. So I think, what are we at, 10... almost 11, 12 minutes in, I think that's enough with respects to covering and giving this attention. So thank you so very much for watching and listening, folks. And there's a lot going on behind the scenes that I wish I could have put into this Kraken, but I'm going to have to put it in this weekend's Patreon members episode because YouTube would nick me, sadly. So with that being said, again, thank you so much, and we'll catch you all later tonight. Cheers.